All right, so question and answer time, everybody. Question and answer time. What is the price plan for this game? Free to play. So they're not saying buy to play, they're saying free to play. Get in, play the game. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm usually very concerned about free to play games. Just straight up. Phantasy Star Online 2 manages it really, really well. So if they're paying attention by any means, then we're going to see that. Man, I wish I could. Yeah, I'm going to turn them down a little bit. But yeah, so free to play. So no plan for selling weapons, baby. Hooah. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, we're going to do 100%. 100%. Yes. So free to play, no plans on selling weapons. Oh, I'm sure it sounded like they just said premium subscription. So if they offer a subscription, I think that's actually really smart as well for players who want to be able to do that. I would find myself more or less subbing to a free-to-play game over in-game purchasing in-game items unless it was kind of like a one-time boost. Yeah, free-to-play is always a concern because you always kind of run into that risk of, like, well, we're not making enough money, and either then, the game goes away and everybody's like, oh no, but I loved it. It's like, well, nobody spent a dime on it. Or or it ends up just going in a direction that helps them generate money so they can keep trying to generate money. Okay. So they're going to have a season pass, and then it says shortening time. So I don't know how that translation works. So if they're going to be selling a season pass, I guess that's going to have kind of that battle pass mindset, play, unlock content, etc. Which in a free-to-play game that works very naturally because then it's not, sitting here. It doesn't sit here and make you like, hey, I have to buy and then I have to buy again. But they say also the season pass is not going to have, it's not going to be for the additional content. So it's just that I guess you're going to look at it as cosmetics. Kitty Tank, welcome to the workforce. Thanks for hitting that follow button. So no, well, at least I'm translating that personally as no pay to win, but the fact that they're not going to sell you weapons, there is a season pass, and the season pass is not going to you don't have to buy the season pass to get into the content. That's what they're saying. And welcome Frazier to the workforce. So the season pass in Destiny definitely hurt it for me as well, Raymond. And I'll have to wait and see how that plays out over time. I don't know. And so they also say there are some patterns to the season pass, but they haven't decided on the details just yet. They say name duplication is okay. So I'm wondering if that's for characters? I mean, it makes sense that you can have a character, in real life have a same name. Yes. You can select your character voice. Okay, so they've gone they've gone into other questions, or they're just riffing right now. Good morning, Dark Lantern. How you been, dude? So you can select your character voice.
使えるようになるというような形ではなくてですね、その施設内で、施設に入ると選択できるパーツを、今後増やしていくといったような形の、リメイクですね、はい、外見変更を予定しています。
まだ決まってないかもしれないんですけど、一応追加質問させてもらうと、はい、男型タイプから、
I haven't got to watch the movie yet, and I'm going to be hopefully watching it this weekend. We have been swamped these last 2 weeks. And I thought about watching it while I work, but we've been doing all these different server migrations, and it's been kind of time consuming. The translation says, and adding now too, so I'm not necessarily following that 100%. Okay, so they said that you can be able to remake your character. It is planned, but they have not yet decided on all the details for that. So that, for me, that makes me think of the kind of the aesthetician, something in which that you can change your hairstyle later. You can remake different things about your character, which makes sense. That's pretty typical. But my guess would be that there probably would be a cost to that. Otherwise, you got to have some way of like kind of getting somebody invested in their character itself. So it looks like question 6 of 25. And you can change your gender. And so for the closed beta test, they're going to have a maximum of 2 characters, but in the official release, they have not yet decided on the maximum number of characters that you can create. My guess is, just like in Phantasy Star Online 2, you get a couple of free slots, maybe 2, and then you can purchase additional. And I think Phantasy Star Online 2 supports up to 3 free characters.
Not me.
Welcome to the workforce, Ashwar. So for guilds that are going to be in the game, they have not prepared that for the closed beta test, but in the official release, guilds will be available. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they've been doing kind of a Q&A now, so they showed off the 4 classes in more detail, and now they're going through kind of a Q&A session from questions that were asked to them on Twitter. As far as the date of the CBT, they have not announced that yet. The perfect MMO. Well, I'll see about some questions here, because that's a big topic, Ramos. They're typing. Okay, here it goes. They want to avoid force joining you into a guild. So I guess perfect MMO It's definitely a blend of Final Fantasy XI and some parts of Final Fantasy XIV. I think from a gameplay perspective, when you look at like the trust system, I think that we've seen MMOs build in a single player campaign and a single player way to play. And I think technology is going to prove and change that in the future to where you can play with friends or with like, your own party. And I know like MMO diehards, like they're like, no, you should play, with a group of people. And I agree. However, we haven't seen that. We've seen those games like try and just fail. And so I think that if you design the game around the concept of a party being together, you can then design it in a way that we can play together, but if you're not available, I can still play with you, and I can play with essentially your AI, just like in or a racing game. Take Forza, like with the Drivatar. If as we're playing, as we're friends, the system kind of learns your style through AI. If you're not online, we can still team up together. And the joke would be, is like, well, your bot gets better than you. But no, I think essentially that an MMO for me is about cooperation, both actively and passively. Games, whenever they don't have a player-driven economy, feels a little bit of a disappointment. Because I think that even still, whatever you're doing works better for the whole. Like, oh, you gathered this, or you went and killed this enemy, and then you got that loot, and then you sold it, and then somebody made something out of it, and somebody bought it. And whether you had a hand in it, there's this the invisible hand of the economy kind of pushing and driving players to help motivate. So it is a blend of essentially a sand park is what I use the term, which is a sandbox and a theme park kind of hybrid. Because you have to have that easing in to get people hooked. Some people, based off their personality, will just come in and play and get hooked. But you see a lot of people hit a wall. Like, oh, nothing's holding their hand and driving them forward. So you kind of have to, get the hook in them before all of a sudden they then develop that self-motivation. And you have to have a sandbox because devs can't make theme park style content fast enough. And all that leads is to unnecessary drama. And I call it the problem of thirds as a part of like content creation. You see hype, you see grind, then you see bitch. And that's essentially when you look at a content creator's like schedule. It's like, this is going to be amazing. Oh, I consumed it all in a day. They should make more content. So you got to give players the ability to create within the game in the game rules, because we'll be your biggest we'll create faster, and we'll create those dynamic stories and things like that. All right, let's see here. Living system like fishing and a casino. They said they're going to implement that slowly and carefully. And they say they do want to implement it, but the order of it is important. And some people enjoy playing solo and they can get their butts handed to them. If you balance it around the sum and the small amount of people playing, like I want to play this MMO solo all by myself, it should be that should be like super hard mode, and that'd be great. But if they balanced games around, like take 14, a black mage, it's like a caster, glass cannon. You can play that game. You have to play all the classes complete. You have to play through the story and everything solo, so everything kind of gets balanced around that, and it's not necessarily, it's homogenized. Well, in 11, you built a reputation on your character. There were characters that I was like, oh man, we became real close friends, and we built a reputation together, because it's like, oh, I played with them. And there's other characters that I go, I'm never going to play with this person again. So should the game be balanced around you just wanting to be completely solo? So they've talked about PvP like in an arena, And that's essentially the question here right now. They also talked about it in terms of party versus party rather than player versus player, and how enemies will form party groups, etc. But again, if you look at these systems in which, like with like Forza, with the trust system in 11 and 14, you can still play solo by yourself, but you have a party. And so from a game designer's perspective, if I know that you have a tank, or, you know, like just going off the Holy Trinity, not in this game specifically, you have a tank and a healer, like that helps design the content around it. If I have to design it so that you can clear it solo as a mage, that content then has to change. So whether you're like a party of people or a solo player, like we have to scale that and design a piece of content that you can clear solo at some point. If we design it around the fact that if you want to go in solo, you want to go in with your like AI, party members like you do right now in a single player game, or if you want to bring your friends, if you put everything on even grounds, it makes it easier to design content that will challenge you in different ways. So player-to-player trade, they say material might not be available, but in a living system like furniture, that seems good. They're still considering it. So I don't understand what they mean by that as a part of the translation. And they say for PvP, player versus player, it is not planned yet. Oh yeah, like I totally get what you mean now. By having that kind of stuff, I think matchmaking in a PvE game is not a good choice. I think that you run with your AI or you find a party yourself. Matchmaking, while as a person who has a family and kids and limited time, there is a benefit there. I think ultimately it makes the content weaker. If you look at if you have to design it that anybody who gets randomly matched can complete it, it also makes the game design less strategic in that way. So I'm actually personally against matchmaking. I think a lot of people say, "Yay, matchmaking! It's so like this is great." For PvP, it's different. Like, fine, you can that's a whole different like conversation. But for PvE content, matchmaking is not ultimately a good thing, and the players eventually turn against it and into a toxic way. But it doesn't necessarily, like, you hear that and you be like, that is completely wrong. But if you chew on that thought, you'll everybody I've talked to at some point has had that experience where they're like, yeah, that sucks. So they said add more classes for official release, and they say they're working and preparing. So that's different from at least what it was been translated before, or the information that people have assumed before as a part of any fan translation that we've had. So that would be cool. I wonder what kind of PV like classes they would consider. Because it's not like their system isn't like when from a Holy Trinity perspective, like what they focus in on, like I guess different weapon types. They say the background music will change from noon to night. Nice. It's not open world in the sense that you just go from like anywhere. Like there are zones with zone lines, etc. But there is a story, and some of the lore behind it seems really interesting. But we're still also relying on fan translation. Yeah, PvP matchmaking is important because ultimately I don't care who I'm fighting. You just want to get into a match. But PvE, like how I see it in the perfect world, kind of that what kicked off this entire discussion, is tied to if you could play, like you bring your AI buddies. Cool. Bring your friends. Kick the AI. AI doesn't have feelings. It's not going to care. that gives you the option, so you can go play. You're not going to be sitting around waiting around. But if you don't want to take the AI, if you don't, and your buddies aren't online, maybe that forces you to kind of have a relationship with somebody in the game. Otherwise, the convenience of the matchmaking ends up creating a relationship that you don't need that other person. So if they're not up to par to your standards and expectations, and I mean this because I too am guilty, where I got into I was like, okay, I just match made. And I was like, I want to clear this as fast as possible because what I'm searching for is the clear because I want to go do something else and etc. I have 15 minutes. I know I can clear this in 8. The other person wanted to explore every nook and cranny and get every treasure chest. And we did not clear it in 8 minutes. But I agreed to those terms by rolling the dice on it having somebody to match me up with. If you go and you preform a party, especially in class design, when you're talking about class design, why we've seen so many of these games take away any player agency is due to matchmaking and the PvE environment. It's saying, oh, if it's not optimal, I'm not going to play with this person. So you get in and find out somebody hasn't done some quest to get some skill or doesn't have some weapon or some gear. It creates unnecessary toxicity. It literally needs to go and be replaced with AI and friend. Like, so that way you're like, well, let's say my wife and my brother were playing this game and it's a 6-person party. Maybe they can do some scaling. Maybe you do it as 3-person, but let's say you really want to have that 6-person party. Well, let's each bring one of our AI friends, who might be offline. This AI could represent a real person. This is not for this game. This is me speaking of my ideal. Oh, the HUD, they're showing it off. This is nice. And so, yeah, just go in and play. And then, yeah, AI is a little less efficient, but you're not sitting around waiting to be randomly matched with somebody. They have not yet supported 4K. You can use an Xbox, a gamepad. Xbox mapping is currently the only one at this time, but they're going to be working on supporting more controller mappings. But mapping for Xbox is what they've got set up. And so you have a lot of freedom when it comes to the HUD. Operation Degree of Freedom is what they said. I think it can be cancerous, Zoila PvP, but it also is something that is, I think, hyperly important to the overall look of the game. And PvP doesn't mean me versus you in active real-time combat. PvP could be leaderboards, time trials. It can be fighting over for territory, like with the conquest system in 11. It's anything that kind of gives that sense of drama. You don't have that sense of drama if everything's so statically curated. It's going to be a game that you play for a little bit and then you go away and then you might come back. You have to have that sense of drama built into the game, into the world, and whether your impact on that is small or large, if it's in real time or if it's not, it has to be something that's considered, because no curated experience will ever, well, that's cool. I like that little wheel. No curated experience will ever be as fast, and people will always churn through the content in 10 seconds, in an hour, and be like, oh, I'm still hungry. Yeah, but Yoshi P and the PvP in 14. I need to jump back in. It's been so frustrating from a timing perspective, but I should jump back in and try to really kind of give it the good old college try again. Yeah, I was for 14, I went and played other games for the PvP because they just did not have it. And I agree. I think hopefully it's, that's what they say. PvP. What was their thing? Not planned yet. Then hopefully gets put on their planning schedule. And there's different ways that you can do it, I think, though, I guess the question for you, I'm Dexvi, would be PvP, can it give you PvE rewards? I would think no. I would think that like you could have like a whole PvP system so that way you're not sitting here going and saying, all right, I'm doing this because this is the fastest way for me to get this currency, which I need for PvE, you know? Because then you end up just getting people going into it for the most efficient, and then you get those people who just bought it for no reason, you know? Oh, bot?
厳しく対応します。これ残念ながらですね、クローズドアルファテストの際にも、そう不正なツールを使用された方いらっしゃいました。ですのでアカウントの停止と、以降のテストへのご参加はお断りをさせていただいています。基本的にボットやチートなどのですね対策対応についての、詳細なお話って、
That'd be cool, Soro.
抜け道を作りやすくなってしまうという理由でなかなかお話しすることは、できません。なのでまあ運営やっている
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I 100% agree.
項目です。はい。ではありますが、まあ対応としては厳しく、対応します。CBT でもですね、ゲームと同時に起動できるソフトウェアについては制限をかけています。で、同時に、起動を不可とさせていただいている。
Yeah, my schedule is like, okay. And then whenever it's off season and it's like, oh, 30 minutes for a match, I'm like, oh god. So do they plan for supports for bots or macros? And they say, no cheat, you get banned. So I'm wondering what they mean by macro, because I'm used to macros in games, so in MMOs. Like especially for emotes and for like chat, right? Do this and it's gonna say, put a text chat out, do an emote. I think what drives me into the PvP system, or what would, like with 14, but also like here, like if they ever, like why I think it's needed, you have the leaderboard, you have the stats though. And then you can also tie like your leaderboard into different seasons. You can also see how you improve match over match and overall how many like kills, etc. I think PvP is also better in terms of when you don't have a dedicated healer. Like 14's big problem is that, especially in 4v4, your game is decided based off of who your healer is, like 90% of the time. And that's really frustrating because it's like, oh, we got the good healer. Well, I mean, we win. Like, do we even need a fight? Because we have the good healer. Softest 84K, welcome to the workforce. Of course, they do worry about misjudgment. And you still no, the closed beta does not start today. Today they went over the classes and the skill trees, and now they're doing the Q&A, and they're on question 2025. You can still register for the closed beta up to March 2nd. If they give us a date in this stream, then we will know. If they don't, they probably will announce an additional stream or two. They've done two, last the 13th and the 20th. So if they're going to be predictable, I could see them do the 27th, and then maybe something on the 5th, because you can register up to the 2nd. I don't know. I'm just going to float that date. Like, you know, what March is a is a full month. So they're asking about, will they release a benchmark so that will allow you to do and create your character? And they are now working on the benchmark for this game. This feels like they are following the Final Fantasy XIV you know, kind of like content schedule to the T. Yeah, maybe.
プロデューサーとして今これを言うわけにもいかないですし、現在非公開となっております。CBT ですからね、まだクローズドベータなので、将来的に発表させていただくタイミングでしかるべき。
Yeah, I agree with you there, Zoila.
そしてその際には拡散をよろしくぜひ拡散してください。
So they want to release the benchmark with character creation function before the official release of the game. I wonder how they're planning on releasing the game.
そこら辺にね、
こっちら辺にねいるんですよ。うちのマーケティング担当みたいなのが
すごい笑ってますね。めちゃくちゃ笑ってます。
作るかな、作るのかな。よくわかんないけど
ここまで行ったけど、こっからこうなのかこうなのか。
僕普通に使いたいんですよね。
So they see CV music producer, still secret. That'll be fun. The music's great. I can't wait to hear more of the soundtrack.
フリー素材だけど
使えるようなスタンプね、
ユーザーさんが自分で遊んでいただく分には
そうです。
気にされて構わないですけども、
作ってくれたらいいなーっていう圧力をかけておこう
ということで、
はい、
はい、まあ楽しみですね。
はい
はい、そしたら次の質問お願いします。はい。
Oh, I bet they're like. I think PSO2 is the biggest game right now in Japan from everybody I've talked to. You know, and so it'll be neat to see if the market shifts to where, because I know Yoshi P likes the subscription model because he feels like it's the most fair, and actually I completely agree with that. But you can see that they've already added a cash shop and more, and you can see that, you know, it'll be neat to see how it evolves in the future. Oh, what's this?
ですのでこの図ではアステルリーズのマップなんですが、アステルリーズはアステルリーズ内の移動
Oh, I think it is far bigger than 14, Zo. So what's a zone and quote-unquote channel? So different instances of that zone itself. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. I love the PvP aspect. Is this game releasing in NA? I would say chances are very good for that, Swiper. As to when and to what to expect, we don't have dates. But being that it's tied to Bandai Namco, being that they've already registered it in North America and Europe, I would say chances are good. And I think a lot of that comes down to, like, also maybe us in a way, like us as a community, not like us as in, like, you know, worked a game, but us as in a community being excited and hopeful for it. Yeah, some are. Oh, that's great. Glad. Nice seeing you. We're saying hi. I mean, you know, maybe massively inflated by whales, but Fortnite bringing in $2 billion a year. EA's making $1 billion a quarter. So either they're, you know, like I have no fundamental problem with the microtransaction as a concept. I think it's all about execution. And so I think anybody who's going to sit here and say, and I, again, always free to play, I'm like, what? Like there's so many unknowns. There's so many ways that it can go wrong. And maybe we've learned enough, but I'm not going to sit here and, you know, be excited about the fact that it's free to play until, you know, we actually see how it's implemented. But the numbers clearly show that they're making money. Thanks, Swiper. You have a good day. I don't know. I think PSO2 did a good job. I mean, there's one example. I mean, you don't have to like Fortnite to know that it would not be successful if the gameplay wasn't good. I haven't played PoE. There was a talk at GDC, I think, talking about like the evolution, you know, like in ways that like you can monetize your game and not make it,
という、分かりやすい
you know, like adversarial to the player.
説明の分かりやすさと図の分かりづらさが混在したものになっている。
Now, I think again the subscription model is the premier model because it's ultimately better for the player because everything's available to you. At least it should be. But that model lost. You know, when you look at it, you're going to see it bundled into subscription services. Like you could see MMOs tapped into, you know, PlayStation Now or Game Pass or, you know, Humble Bundle. You know, like different things like that. Like you're part of a bigger collection of games. But how does that then get, you know, rolled out to the players themselves? So they say, talking about the population breakdown, in a city 200 people, in the field 30, in a dungeon 6, unless there's an exception for that specific dungeon.
やっぱりユーザーイベントだったりとかそういうのをやりたいでそのために必要なんだよっていうのはすごく理解してますが、例えば本当に任意のチャンネル移動だったりとか、任意のユーザーさんのところへの、移動を許可してしまうとですね、例えばですね、
Yeah, I completely agree, Ramos.
ゲームの事例で
Like, I agree.
話に上がるストーカー問題だったりとか、そういった問題
But the argument and the point I'm presenting is
自由な形での
we are the minority and we lost.
で
It's like, okay, you know, like I'm with you. And then when they look at it from a company perspective,
何ができるかなっていうのをちょっと
you know, the writing's on the wall.
が、今のステータスとなります。
I expect that if there's a subscription in the future, let's say for Final Fantasy MMOs, it's going to be a Square Enix subscription. You subscribe to our entire catalog as opposed to an individual game.
ますよということですね。はい。そしたら
The only way loot boxilization is going to happen, though, is if people work with their local
こちらもだから
government to force their hand. If it becomes quiet, and the rage is already dying down. Like on YouTube, people like, you know, oh no, loot box.
中に自由な投稿
No, I mean Apex Legends launched with loot boxes, doing just fine.
これに関してはですね、まずちょっと、勘違いされてある
It's definitely got kind of a label, you know, to it. But I you know, I don't think the governments are going to do anything. I think some governments are, but ultimately, you know, there's too much money behind it. Too many people getting elected, you know.
や、レイド、闘技場などのアクション性
So unless we're actively involved with the government, I don't know, man. I don't have much hope for it.
で、CBT から改めて、さっきちょっと話もありましたけど、はい、実装された、ショートカットリングや、トークモード
So if you move between zones as a part of the channel or essentially an instance, your party is going to be priority matched to that specific instance. You can move to a desired channel if needed. It's going to be restricted, but they're going to make some adjustments.
アイテムを、はい、入れたりとか、そこにスタンプを入れられるようにしたりとか、
Yeah, you're going to see the battle, like anything that was like the loot box is being replaced by the battle pass. And I mean, that's fine. You know, it's like you play, you unlock, etc. And then you can pay to unlock tiers. You know, that seems to be fine right now. And until somebody does something very egregious, it probably is just going to maintain that. But I mean, when we talk about gamers, core gamers versus just overall, like the numbers also don't favor us. And I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. I'm just saying that we were a niche thing. Gaming became mainstream, and then core gamers have become niche again. Because it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy that. And then they're like, great, I'm not making it for you. I'm making it for the people who will purchase it.
ながら、チャットが打てるかっていうとなかなか難しい。
And the numbers clearly show that there are plenty of people willing to spend money, or a small handful of billionaires, or a small handful of people willing to go into insane amounts of debt.
トークの、禁止を、というふうにさせていただきました。で、それについて、正直もう開発の中でも出てるんですけども、定型文だったり、ショートカットリングだとこういう状態の時に困ったとか、苦労したとかそういうのがおそらくあると思うので、 そこのところの、ご意見だったり情報を、CBT の結果として、お寄せいただきたいと思っています。でそれをもとに、
When are you looking forward to? You looking forward to the 7 remake?
もしかしたら、
The episodic 7 remake?
そういう形での、自由文でのトークを復活させた方がいいのか、そこまで含めて、改めてもう一回、判断したいと思ってますので。
So can you chat while in combat? They say full chat is not available, but the shortcut function might be available while in combat. I love it, but it also breaks my heart that the two you listed are also remakes. I'm looking forward to Cyberpunk. I'm glad they're giving it more time. And I don't have a PlayStation 4 anymore, so I was like, once it died, I was like, I'm gonna wait till PS5, and now I'm like, oh gosh, this is gonna be a long wait. I'm sure my brother's gonna get me to buy Animal Crossing. He always gets into those games, and then I join him. Yes, Trial of Mana. It's a remake, but it's not like just a remaster, because like you have access to Trial of Mana with the collection. So I played that with Maddie, and I'm looking forward to the remake for Trials of Mana. And I actually specifically avoided playing the classic because they said they were already working on the remake of it. So they're looking for our feedback regarding the closed beta test.
今日の配信では新たなゲームの要素もお見せしつつ、皆様の質問にもお答えしてきたわけなんですが、ここでもう一度僕たちからのお知らせをさせていただければと思います。
Okay, I gotcha. I enjoyed playing it with Maddie.
次回が最後の配信となる予定です。せっかくですのでというか先週に引き続き、次回皆様が見たいコンテンツや疑問質問などを募集させていただきたいと思います。はい、前回同様ですね、見たいコンテンツや疑問質問はブループロトコルの公式ツイッターにて、募集をさせていただきます。引き続き、この放送が終わりましたらまた、必要なハッシュタグ
Twitter.
公式ツイッターの方で、発信させていただきます。
So they say in some cases full chat functions might actually be restored, but it depends on feedback. Man, there's been so much information in this. I'm calling them live letters just because that's kind of my history with covering these things. Yeah, Cyberpunk is coming out to GeForce Now, which is great. That gives me a lot of options to play. How nuts would they be? How insane, how mad would we be if they're like, and it's exclusive to Google Stadia? It's like, oh, son of a bitch. So, currently playing the 5.2 patch for Final Fantasy XIV. Been almost done with Temtem, like getting like as a part of early access. I played PSO2 for the Japan, but I'm kind of just waiting for the NA release to get some information on that. I play Halo 5 with my wife and friends every Wednesday night, and see here what else. I've been really love Destiny 2, but right now with the season pass model that they have, it just has not been good. Like I just can't. It's demotivated me to the point where I'm like, okay, I'll come back and play later. It always is like, well, I'll wait till the next season because I'm already too far behind on this season, and I'm not gonna go grind that up. As a parent, like you're like, oh man, like I just listed off a bunch of games, and so I play games very intensely in very short, limited time during the week. So I have dedicated game time that I can play during a week. That's on the kind of the schedule, and I either play with my wife or with the community here. And so it's like I get a lot of stuff done, what I feel like in a short amount of time. So, and I've been set a resolve for 2020 to play more games. So I just actually also started a Division 2 character because I got that game for $3. What else have I been playing? I just, like, there's a lot of really good stuff going on. I played a lot of Anthem recently as a part of the Ice Tide season, and I'm still waiting to see what that 2.0 version does. And I got a ton of stuff unlocked. Anthem season pass model is actually better than Destiny's, and that was just something that I thought was weird. And I asked if people wanted me to make a video about it, and the results on the poll were about 50-50 split. Yeah, so Star actually helped me out with a quest yesterday in Division 2. Oh, and I have Wolson. And my problem with Wolson has been primarily with I had it as part of early access, and my character's gone when I came to, and I wasn't able to play like for a week. The servers were down, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry about it, right? The gameplay feels good, but then I come back, my early access character's gone. I'm like, okay. And, all right, well, let me start again. So I'm playing, and, yeah, it's fun, but there's lots of bugs, lots of little issues, and so hopefully they can kind of turn around. It's good in the way that it's like, all right, I know that can be stressful, especially if that's like the one thing you've been waiting to play. But I've been just like, yeah, like, was able to play a little bit yesterday, got some footage. So I was hoping to have a kind of a deeper impression up on my channel, and it's just not ready. Like, I just need to spend more time with it. I love the skills tree system they have, and honestly, yeah, wait till it goes on sale. By that time, hopefully everything's kind of stabilized with it. You can hack your offline character too, which is cool. But the nice thing is Wolson runs in GeForce Now, so every game that I can get in GeForce Now is a huge saver. Like, it's just a space saver. I'm always feeling like I'm up against the limit of hard drive space, so I'm waiting for them to add Star Wars and stuff like that, because I'm like, let's go, people. But yeah, Wilson feels like I'm playing Diablo. In a really good way. Like, having played Diablo 4, that was a lot of fun. And I really am excited about Diablo 4, but at the same time, I'm not putting any hope in it. I think Activision Blizzard have to like, I don't know, deliver and stop, being stupid for me to actively be excited about Diablo 4. What I played was great, but that game felt years away. Oh, Outriders looks so interesting. I haven't touched it myself, but everything I've seen and everything we've found from like leaked documents and everybody I've talked to, it could be very promising. It's not what people think as in terms of like this persistent game. It's like an action RPG, kind of a third-person action RPG cover shooter. But yeah, it's just going to be like they're saying it's going to be a complete game. Yeah, I posted up on it on Ginger Prime, and we kind of covered it as a live thing with the event, and we had actually early access to the Game Informer article that came out, so we covered that information, and it looks good. Yeah, it looks good. I hope it's good. It feels the lore that they kind of have tied into into Outriders seems interesting. The fact that it's coming out later this year. There's a couple other things like why am I drawing a blank? Godfall. Godfall with the kind of that looter slasher kind of mindset. It looks really interesting. I'm not holding my breath on the Avengers game, so we'll have to wait and see. They have, Square Enix can hopefully show up, knock it out of the park. With that, guys, I have 12 minutes until I have to do work, and so I'm gonna go get ready for work. I'm gonna go say hi to the kids because they're getting up. I'm gonna go say hi to my wife. Been up covering this event, and then I'm gonna go work and hopefully you guys look forward to the highlights of the stream up over on Work to Play, as well as kind of some thoughts coming to well, maybe, I don't know, man, like I'm gonna reserve judgment. And hopefully you guys come and check out my thoughts later over on Ginger Prime. All right, looks like playing the video from last 13th. So if and they say, oh, next live stream, 7 days. So be sure to hit that follow button, subscribe, social media, whatever. And we'll be back here in a week to cover more of these dev updates. for you guys as well. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Hopefully you guys are able to get access to the Discord. It sounds like I'm Dex5 was able to get in, which is great. Again, the live translation is being brought to you by blueprotocaldb.com. Go check them out. They'll have probably some written up articles if you don't want to hear my voice over on Ginger Prime when I summarize this for you guys later this morning. All right. I love you guys. Y'all have a great day, whether at work or, I don't know where you are in the world. So you could be getting ready to kick back, play some games tonight. So hopefully whatever you're doing, you're having fun. I'll see you soon. Bye.